What up everyone, Talon here with Amped Airsoft, and today we are going to be going over some of the features and functions on the Titan II electronics conveniently paired with the Pulsar D. So let's get into it. So first I want to talk about the fact that the Pulsar D, while I do have it, is not going to be the prioritization of today's video. We are going to be talking about the electronics, the Titan II HPA electronics that a lot of players are going to get in addition to whatever engine they're utilizing. A lot of misconception is going to be around the Titan II being just for the gate electronics. Gate has opened up the Titan II to work with a lot of other HPA engines that are available on the market. So even though I have it here for the Pulsar D, it is not exclusive on the Pulsar D, or S for that matter. So you can run the Gate Titan II electronics with, most popularly, a F2 Fusion engine. A lot of indoor players are going to prefer going with the Titan II and F2 combination because you have a lot of the air efficiencies and a lot of the performance of the Polarstar F2 in tandem with the Gate Titan II controllability and tunability, on top of the fact that it is Bluetooth, so you can connect to your phone. We're going to do a side-by-side go through a lot of the electronics, and it's also going to go with you guys if you're looking at getting the Titan II for yourself for your engine and your HPA setup. What are some of the things that you can look forward to? What are some of the things that you can tune, edit, and what are a lot of the aftermarket functionality that you can expect if you were to go with this? Now, for anyone who is not familiar with Gate electronics, you do have a tier system. So specifically around the electronics, you have the Titan II and then you have the Aster II. Both of those are going to be available in an AEG or HPA configuration. As of right now, they don't develop both of those in tandem. So you can't purchase a Titan II to work in your AEG or your HPA. You have to prioritize the Titan II for your AEG or for your HPA. Same thing with the Aster II. The Pulsar D and the Pulsar S are the exceptions, where they are going to be HPA engines produced by Titan that are expected to come with the Titan II electronics. So let's get into the app. So anyone who is going to have the app downloaded, available for Android and for iOS, the cool thing when you go with either one of these engines is that it is Bluetooth. So you are able to, when you have this built and connected, try to go to this guy here, you do have the option to add or connect a device. So you are going to plug your HPA battery into your engine and it should populate and connect. Because I'm already connected, there's not really a drop-down option. But if you have a team of your players that are playing indoors and you're trying to do a little bit of tuning and adjustment, just make sure that you're connecting to the right one. You can double check by the convenient information tab that's available on the back of all of the Gate electronics. There is going to be a pin that is going to confirm that you are logging into and connecting to that specific device. So if the rest of your team is running Gate electronics, you can still positively connect to one of those. So you can see in this Gate control station that I have the Titan II connection, and then I have the Pulsar D, which is connected to the Titan II. Now I do want to tell you guys that I'm on currently the version 0.2 beta 06. So I do have another Titan that is not going to be the current version of these electronics. Gate is very good about having regular updates for their Titan II and Aster II and a lot of their other electronics. So just make certain that you are updating your HPA engine or your electronics before you go out and play. It's going to be not fun if you are connecting to your app in the middle of the game to double check some settings, and then you're stuck sitting behind a bunker for several minutes waiting for your electronics to update. Been there, done that, not really fun. So when you have options for, so when you currently are tapped into the Titan II, you have a couple of options. So this is going to be your dashboard settings. So you have your general, trigger, selector, magazine, Telemetry, Diagnostics, ASG Calculator, your tournament lock, and information on this device in particular. So the dashboard is going to allow you to, if you click into it, go between different devices. And same thing with your Pulsar D, because that is the one that is configured. It does automatically show and display all of the settings that are set for that engine. So if I have something for a Pulsar S or one of the other single solenoid or dual solenoids, you are able to change and adjust any of those. So we're going to go to our electronics, our Titan 2, and go into our general. So this is where a lot of the, some of the most important settings are going to occur. These are the functions. So at the very top, you have your shooting mode. So you can turn this on, turn this off, and that's going to allow you to test different settings and different functions in order to double check your rate of fire if it's something that sounds good, or double check that your fire modes are where they're supposed to be. So you can see as I move this around that you do get some options that are going to change. So when I go into safe to semi, our HPA engine is going to recognize that something is moving around and something is going to need to get adjusted or changed. So if I click into my HPA engine, you'll notice that I am connected to the Pulsar D. You can change these between a couple of different engines. Now, earlier versions of the gate electronics gave you specific engines. So in the case of my Pulsar S, single solenoid H, not too familiar, that's a brand new one. Pulsar D for a dual solenoid. And then you have single solenoid valves and dual solenoid valves. So the single solenoids are going to be your jacks and your infernos, and the dual solenoids are going to be your F2s. And then from there, I'm going to go back to my Pulsar D selection. I'm going to load the recommended settings. Cancel. Go to Pulsar D, accept. And then you have your operations. You have your open bolt, close bolt, and each one of those are going to have different causes and effect. You can check our HPA video on the differences between open and close bolt. And then you have active settings on semi and then active settings on auto. So you do have control and even further tunability and adjustability. So when we talk about settings 1 and setting 2, you'll notice down below in the large boxes, you have different setting configuration models. So what you can do is you can tell the engine, when I'm in the semi-auto position, I want these settings specifically, versus if you're in the automatic position, you can have a different setting configuration. What does this mean? What does this do? Well, let's give this a hypothetical situation where if I wanted to have maybe MP5 that I have here in front of me, if I were in semi-automatic position, this might be something that would be more of a open bolt, something that's going to maybe run more full auto at a lower velocity. If I'm going to be running indoors specifically for a milsim, and then auto might be something that's going to be more attuned for outdoors, something that is going to be for a heavier weight projectile that's going to tell the engine to allow more airflow through the nozzle in a closed bolt configuration that's going to be a lot more tunability, or at least fine tunability. So I have a lot more precision and consistency from shot to shots. So that's going to be what setting 1 and setting 2 are going to denote if you wanted to have that level of tunability on your setup. Now, that is not something that I have on mine. What I do is I have my setting 1 configuration for absolutely everything. And you'll notice that when I did the original change from the Pulsar D to the single solenoid, dual solenoid, it asked if I wanted to upload the default settings. In my personal experience in testing out the Gate Pulsar electronics, the dual solenoid model, specifically the Pulsar D, I have found that the default configurations have not been all of that great. So you have your main valve time, your main valve pause, your nozzle valve time, and your nozzle valve pause. What these are going to do is it's going to control how long your main solenoid and then your nozzle solenoid are going to remain open and closed. This controls the amount of air volume that's going behind the BB and how much air is going into the nozzle to open or close it. There's a lot of tunability and a lot of adjustments that will need to be done if you're doing different BB weights, different speeds as far as rate of fire, different speeds on semi-automatic. There's a lot of things that you can adjust for your environment and your situation. What I have found just going through and just trial testing some of these, your main valve, I have changed to a 10 milliseconds. Come on. Oh wait, I want that one. 10 milliseconds. And then my main valve, oh, excuse me, not 10. I want it to be 15. So you have a lot of room for configuration. So you can even go up to 100 milliseconds. Nozzle valve time, 10 milliseconds. And then my valve pause offset, 10 megaseconds. So going down the list here, 15, 15, 10, 10. And then you also have your rounds per second limitation. Now you also have on here, which is very interesting, is that it will recall through the history of the entire engine what your max RPS has been set at. So what you can do is you can tap in, make a adjustment if you want to max it out at 33, and it'll say, hey, based on those numbers, the max might be 33, or in the case of what I've done, just for a couple of seconds, I've just maxed it at 33 just to see what it does. And then you can turn your shooting mode on, and then out loud, you can hear what that rate of fire is going to be. And then you might be like, oh, that seems like a little bit too much. Let me just change this down to, I don't know, I'm gonna go 20 rounds a second. Maybe 20 might be a little bit too much. What if I do 5 rounds per second? So while your shooting mode is on, you can test that. I mean, granted, I don't have any air connected right now, but you should be able to also get air through that if you want to go crazy and hear what that is. So that is RPS. Anti-stiction has been a little bit difficult to nail down as far as what gate specifically defines it as and the overall functionality. But I also want to point out that if you continue on down through to the very bottom of that page, they will have different definitions to clarify what each of those settings are supposed to be. So that is currently everything that is just in the HPA engine. And then throughout this general page, you also have your multifunctional port. Gate electronics do have aftermarket modifications. In the case of a very custom build, you have empty magazine detection, you have a closed bolt system, so you can put one of those sensors onto a AEG imitation bolt release in order to simulate when your magazine runs out, you need to reload and then hit that imitation bolt in order to get the system to start firing again. Very, very, very cool. Those are all things that you can add as additional support to your custom HPA build. You can also tell your app and your electronics what type of battery you're going to be utilizing, how many cells it's going to be utilizing, any type of low battery detection, stuff like that. You can tell it to warn you if you are running too low, to ignore it, so on and so forth. And then you have your series safety limit. This again is something that has been not super clear, but is something that you can adjust if you feel so in the need. Here's one of the very fun things for a lot of speedsofters or indoor players is that on this trigger page, you can, as you gently pull the trigger, you can see on the system where it recognizes the shot and then where the reset is, and then fire, reset. So you can also set that to be way close up or you can set it, in my case, to be very far off. That way, in my personal opinion, setting it all the way max as far back as you can go means that that is the wall that you are slapping against, and then you have a relatively short reset, and then you're just bouncing off of that wall. You have your equalizer, which is going to be how many or how sensitive your electronics are going to be, because it is optical sensors that recognize where that trigger arm is going to move and where it's going to be. And then you also have your sniper delay, and that's going to be if you are wanting to emulate maybe a DMR or some type of bolt action rifle that has a larger caliber, you can tell the system or the electronics that I want to fire every 2 seconds or every 1.5 seconds. So no matter how many times I pull that trigger in that 2-second window, I'm only going to get 1 shot. And then after 2 seconds, I can fire again. So that's something that's going to help add to the realism of your electronics and your very specific build. It can be a fun challenge if you have a team and you have a large group that want to play with each other or challenge each other with that sniper delay, doing 1 shot a second. So instead of being able to fire too many rounds around a corner, if you're trying to do that peak, challenge each other to like 1 shot a second, 1 shot every 1/2 second, or even a shot every 2 seconds if you're feeling really crazy. And then you have your selector switch, another very common option for a lot of players that are going to utilize the Titan II electronics. Very classically, you have your selector mode of safe, semi, and auto. And so this one is also a lot of fun to sit here and move around, because you can see as you move your selector on your replica, the electronics are going to recognize what selector mode it is. So you go in there, you can change your safe to any other type of system as long as it moves. So here we go. So semi, you can move to safe, semi, auto, burst, binary, semi-ramping, or burst auto. So your burst auto is going to be on the trigger pull. It's going to initiate a burst, and then if you continue to hold the trigger down, it's going to go into full auto. Think of a traditional AUG system. So in my case, I want it to remain semi, and maybe for a certain game, I want to take auto off, and I want to do just binary. So binary, if anyone does not know, is going to be shot, 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 shot. So very, very cool. And then I also have a burst mode on here, which is going to be for a 2-round burst. You can adjust it if you set one of those to be burst. So now I have safe, semi, and burst can go anywhere from 2 rounds a second all the way up to 99 BBs. So you got, again, a lot of control, maybe too much control if your burst is 99 rounds. I'll go back to 2 rounds. And so depending on what you want to have as far as your individual build, or again, depending on if you're running indoors or outdoors, depending on the rifle that you have, that might be something you need to consider. Our magazine mode. So I currently have it on as far as simulated, which is what it's going to do is it's going to tell the system overall, if I am firing after 30 rounds, I need to have a reload time. Now you'll notice that on here, the reload capacity is 30 BBs, which you can change depending on whatever rifle you want. And then your reload time is going to delay after that many shots, however long you think it's going to take to reload that system. So in this imaginary MP5 loadout that I have, I might do, we're gonna do 29 rounds because the cool guys always downloaded their magazines. And I wanna change that reload to be, I'm not the fastest guy in the world, so we'll go 8 seconds. So after 29 rounds, the engine is going to recognize or set a timer for 8 seconds. And then after that 8 seconds, I'm gonna be able to continue to fire again. We turn on shooting mode. There we go. So that's our 29 shots. So I'm not able to fire at all. And then after 8 seconds, I'm able to fire again. Very cool system. That's my 29 shots. We're gonna wait 8 total seconds, because again, in a real world, I would not be the fastest guy to reload. And then we're back up. So a very, very, very cool system. Again, something that you can lean into if you want something that's gonna be a little bit more realistic, or you might wanna turn that off entirely if you don't wanna be bothered at all. Now we have our telemetry, and you can call this whatever you want. In the case of what I currently have is a range of rounds per second on semi, the Titan electronic temperatures, as well as the average voltage. So you can see what the minimum has been and what the maximum has been, and then you can tell that over the lifetime of the electronics. Now you'll notice that you have session, BB1, BB2, and factory. So factory is always going to be from when it's plugged in, how long you've utilized it. So it essentially gives you the lifespan of the electronics, how many total shots have been fired. So you'll notice that I currently only have just shy of 1,200 rounds on this system, so a relatively low BB count. In fact, this has been a lot more testing rather than actual field usage, otherwise that number would be a little bit higher up. Don't out me. And then you have other options, so you can go directly down to electronic or stay up at the Airsoft. Let's go to Diagnostics. Now, what I have noticed is that whenever you are doing live shooting or you're just plugging the battery into the electronics, you're always going to have something that's going to populate into the diagnostics. And these are things that are going to pop up. The system is diagnosing as a potential issue. In the case of this one, it's failed to detect the movement of the tappet plate. So as I'm firing it, there is supposed to be a tappet plate that is spring retained, but utilizes air pressure to move the nozzle backwards. So it's failed to notice that that tappet plate is moving, and it's not going to move unless I have air hooked up to it. So in the case of it's said that there's been an issue, but I know that the issue is self-caused, I can clear the DTC. Now, here's where we get into the part of the electronics where I'm not a huge fan of. You have your ASG calculator. What this is going to do is it's going to give you a range of joules and velocity. These are going to tell you roughly based on how heavy your BB weight is. In the case of what I have a 0.2 or up to a 0.5 gram. I can even go in here and I can change. Oh, I'm gonna run 3 2s. But then I need to go through the chrono, and my chrono is telling me that I am 360 FPS. And then it's gonna tell me that I am roughly 1.93 joules, which is going to be an excess. What this is not telling me is it's not telling me based on my short barrel system on my MP5 that potentially if I had a longer barrel on here, or I'm putting this engine from a different rifle into the MP5, it's not giving me an accurate current velocity or joule counter. I still need to manually go up to a chronograph and plug these variables in order for it to spit out a number. These are all numbers I'm going to get at the chronograph anyway. So I think that the ASG calculator is a little redundant, and I don't necessarily think it is going to be 100% accurate, because joules also are going to be a rough calculation. It is not designed to be a super accurate tell of what the impact energy is of the BB, especially anyone who's taken their engine and they've moved it from a short rifle system to a long barreled rifle system. The variances are going to change, and your joules and velocity are going to change as well. And then one of the last things that we have here is the tournament lock. Now, what I have, oh, maybe they just updated it. On the previous version, when I was prepping for this, I did not have the ability to enable the tournament lock. And now, on the current version, it is telling me that I can't, so that is good. Always make sure that your electronics are up to date. So, depending on what type of field or what type of tournament you might be participating in, if you and your team all have the same electronics, you are able to do some testing, do some walkthroughs when it comes to the field for the tournament. And then once you have everything dialed in, you pass, you can go into the app and you can set your tournament lockout for the length of the day, which might be 6 hours and some odd minutes, whatever the case is. Or in the case of you and your homies want to challenge each other and you want to do just a 30-minute match with your DMR settings turned on or your sniper delay turned on, you can go to each other and you can set and enable that tournament lockout and then go out to the field and have some fun. But that is essentially everything that is going to be current and up to date on the electronics, or all of the things to know about the electronics. It can be very in-depth. It can look like a lot of information. I promise you it's not that crazy. I can also show you that you can go back onto different firmware versions. It is going to be different, or it is going to take some time for your electronics to revert back to whatever version you currently have enabled. You can also change your firmware version, or it can tell you what firmware version you have. That it's one of those things where you can upgrade, but you can't really downgrade. The basic and the advanced to the expert are all going to limit what you can do in these electronics. So everything that I've gone over with you is going to be in the expert firmware settings. The basic settings are going to be a lot more limiting. The advanced are going to let you do a little bit more controllability, and the expert gives you absolutely everything that's available. So I think personally, trying out the basic, the advanced, and then the expert, if you are just getting started, the basic firmware version is going to be just fine for you guys. If you're trying to do anything that's going to be a lot more advanced, a lot more controllability, especially if you're going from the Pulsar, or you're getting the Titan 2 electronics for an F2, where you have a lot more tunability and a lot more controllability on the F2, you definitely are going to want the expert electronics if you are looking to really fine-tune that F2. And the cool thing is, with the firmware edition, that is something that you can do a in-store purchase, or at least a in-app purchase, and you can upgrade those electronics for them. So that's one of the cool things about this system. Now, as far as a overall note, you do need to be extremely careful when you're trying to do anything with the Titan 2 electronics. They are extremely finicky and they can be very difficult to try to troubleshoot, especially if you don't know what you are doing. The manual can give you a lot of good information and you can follow along on the installation tutorial. However, if you accidentally do something wrong, the gate electronic warranty can be a little finicky, and you might run into issues with them not doing the warranty. Always reach out to them, always make sure that you let them know whenever there's anything wrong with your electronics. From my personal experience, I have had some issues in trying to get gate to 100% warranty some faulty electronics, especially when it was an issue of taking the Titan 2 electronics from an indoor game to an outdoor game, and the electronics just straight up died on me. So that was an issue where I didn't feel like there was any type of issue going from indoor to outdoor, and the electronics kind of kaputted themselves. Gate had said that it was something on my end. So just be completely aware of that, especially if it's something that is going to be the installation process. They more than likely are not going to warranty that because you might have installed it incorrectly. Always take it to someone who has experience installing the gate electronics before, or someone who is a seasoned, knowledgeable technician and can go through the installation process for you. So hopefully that was educational and informative of you guys if you're looking at getting into the Titan 2 electronics for yourselves. Let me know down in the comment section below if you have any further questions on the gate electronics or anything about this system overall. I've got some notes and hopefully I can help you guys out. Also, send an email to sales@ampairsoft.com. That is going to be another way to reach us and have a more in-depth conversation we can share photos and memes and emojis rather than doing it through the YouTube comments section. And if you're cool and young and hip, you can also go into our Amped Airsoft Discord where we can answer some of those questions as well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. You guys stay safe, stay positive, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.